One of the blessings of priesthood is that you get invited into people's lives at all different times and all different moments. Marriages, baptisms, so a lot of happy moments, anniversaries, but then also sad moments like funerals and losing a loved one or illness. One of the saddest things, though, for me throughout my ministry has been fractured relationships. When people are so angry or upset or hurt by someone in their own family or a close friend that they can't even speak to one another. Those strike me as so sad, and because there's something we can deal with. We can't change death. We celebrate the journeys we have in marriage and in anniversaries. We gather in prayer when someone's sick. But when there's a fractured relationship, it really relies on the people involved. And I think that's what Jesus is referring to in our gospel passage today. These aren't little hurts, these aren't little things. It's the major fracturing that takes place in our lives. I'm a farm boy from up north, and I'm what's commonly referred to as a lifer because I entered seminary right out of 8th grade. So I've been a priest for almost 39 years at this point, or have been for 39 years. I entered seminary, I was 14, and then for the first time ever, the seminary in my sophomore year had a go-home weekend. The seminary was 200 miles from my home, and so one of the dads came and brought us all home on Friday night, and my older brother, who was a senior in high school, kept checking in to see if I got home yet because he was going to take me out. Finally, about 11 o'clock, we figured, well, he's not going to come anymore at this hour, so we all went to bed. The phone rang at 1 o'clock in the morning. He had been in an automobile accident, and unfortunately, he died on Sunday morning. It was a horrible loss, a horrible experience. But one of the things it did is, as you can imagine, it brought me and my younger brother and my parents very, very close together because we hadn't experienced a tragedy. Now, being from farm country, I'd seen farms passed down through families, generation after generation after generation. Well, by the time it got to my generation, you could not split the farms any further and still make a living. And so they usually went to just one family member. Some families did that very well, and others not so well. And when it wasn't done so well, there were fractured relationships, brothers that wouldn't talk to each other, and things like that. My family had an agribusiness. We had chickens. That's one of the reasons why I went to seminary out of 8th grade, because my dad said if I didn't like eggs, I had to go to seminary. You see what happened. But my brother and I, a couple years after my older brother died, and there was a particularly hurtful passing on of the farm that we became aware of, decided we were never going to fight over the business. We were never going to fight over money. And anything that ever came up in our relationship, we would talk about. And thankfully, we've been able to do that. Unfortunately, it took me a long time to learn that the gospel passage wasn't just about your brothers. It's about everyone that you meet. It's about our friends. It's about all the people we run into, even strangers. So when we have a conflict, the very first thing we need to do is talk to the person. Not talk about them to somebody else, but to talk directly to them. And if that doesn't work, then maybe get somebody else to go with you. Now, not somebody who's on your side, but somebody who can be objective, and perhaps you both can learn from. And you repeat that process over and over. My brother one time, and this is just a humorous thing, he came to me and we were talking, and he says, you know, every time I'm with Mom, it's Father Larry this, and Father Larry that, and Father Larry this. And I just laughed. And he said, what are you laughing about? It's not funny. And I said, Rick, every time I'm with Mom, it's Rick this, it's Rick that, it's Rick whatever. Or Rick's kids, or their grandkids, or whatever. You know, and that's just a humorous example, but there are so many times that things go on in our life, among siblings, in our families, among our friends, that if we don't talk about them, we'll never learn what the other person thinks, or because we can't read each other's minds. Each and every person in this church is made in the image and likeness of God. So we have something to learn from each and every person in this church about the creative genius of our God. Every time we separate ourselves from anybody in the kingdom, anybody on earth, we are separating ourselves from the possibility of learning more about God. And that fractures the kingdom. None of us do it perfectly, and we're never going to do it perfectly. But we try over and over again. We go a first time, we go a second time, we go a third time. We never, never give up trying to build the kingdom of God.